Hello friends, welcome back to another Value Vintage Cards video. So in this one I want to just kind of chat it up. I've got a whole bunch laying in front of me just to share for different reasons, but the topic du jour is the idea of things being rare, scarce, oddball, whatever you want to use your term, and those have slightly different meanings, interpretations, and maybe appeals for folks. But I also want to go on another, maybe it's time has passed, but another hot button topic, and that's the idea of watching videos, being in a community, and being influenced. And I always kind of gently nudge that word over to inspire. So I mentioned that the other day. I said, I was watching a John Mangini video, and he showed something and it inspired me to research it or whatnot. But influence, I feel like, has a negative. You get pulled over because you're under the influence. That's not good. Inspired generally has a I ran 3 miles. I started a business. I went back to school. Like that, you get inspired to do good things, right? And so that's kind of how I look at it. If you watch a video and someone shows all their 52 manels, I can't run out and sell car and put half down on a 52 manel. Like that's not really what ends up happening. But when you do watch a video and you see, I'll say 2 things: something you've never seen before. That might inspire me to, add something to the list. And when it's appropriate, you do find it. So, if you want to call that influence, feel free, but I call it inspiration because I'm, actively wanting to add a really cool XYZ. And I didn't even know that existed. So thank you for the introduction. I think to me, that's really exciting. That's fun. So that's one way of inspiring. And the other way is really just to inspire, almost backwards. And that's been kind of a joy that I kind of expected and was hoping, and is true, from going through and recording videos and watching other videos. I've got a certain level of collection, and some of it's standard stuff I've had for a long time. Sometimes it's a new item, but when you start looking back and you see someone else showing a video and they're just thrilled to have a card, and you're like, I've got that card. And you pull it out, you look at it, and it's almost like you can kind of, see it through their lens. You see it through their perspective a little bit, and you're like, yeah, that's right. They really did. I've had a 59 Topps Frank Robinson for decades, and it's a, gorgeous card, but, I don't always pull it out and say like, ooh, 59 Topps Frank Robinson. That's amazing. But when you see someone else get it, and it's the first time they've had it, and it's been on their list, and they're having that same joy you had 30 years ago. You kind of can pull that back out and look at it and be like, yeah, that's right. That really is. It is exactly that cool. It is it is worthy of that level of excitement when you bust out that card, and so that's just some of the stuff. But I was watching a Cardboard and Cold Ones episode recently, and that was Sammy and Jason bringing on different folks from the community, many of whom I've met or actually met, but a lot of it's just interaction online. So he had Pastor Craig, and he had Matt from the Card Story on this. And when I say he, it's co-hosting, so they. But the double guest, it's fun because it's very themed in some way, shape, or form. And so they're both, kind of passionate Braves collectors in different ways, and I am as well. I used to spend summers down in Georgia, so it's always kind of fun to hear stories of where people come from. I used to spend summers in Georgia, so I was obviously not quite in the Eddie Mathews, Warren Spahn, Hank Aaron era, but I was definitely in the Dale Murphy, Bob Horner. They were horrible era, but it was still super fun. Murphy was obviously amazing, and I would put him in the Hall of Fame in a second, but that was the era. But as any vintage collector, you probably start researching further back than what you're actively watching. So that's really where my draw came to a lot of those players. But I just wanted to kind of go through and one of the neat things is when they mentioned my channel, they mentioned some friends, they mentioned other people's channels that I watch and that I'm, friends with and different things. So it is neat just to see that dynamic. And just to, kind of makes you feel like the world's a little bit smaller and, that you're able to share and contribute and, have a little, inspiration maybe to folks because they're seeing things. And I just wanted to show some other things. One of the first ones they were showing was Eddie Mathews. I think that's one of the neat, take a look at that. That is your Spick and Span. That's a 54-56 Spick and Span. Also, Spick and Span. We can stick with that. There's a couple of different orange Spahns. It's a neat one. These really are neat. If you're looking for, an alternative option for collecting, that's so cool. So clearly something different, something you don't see every minute, something I didn't know existed, 10 years ago. That one just blows my mind. I love that. That 55 is on my list. It's one of the probably top 2 or 3, updating what your goals are. That 55 Spick and Span Spahn is Spick and Span Spahn. Say that 10 times fast, but, those are so cool. And mine's ungraded. I can't even attempt to be a PSA registry type collection, like, Matt does. I guess they could say I had it all if I were to re-slab and have graded and all the stuff, but they'd be like, oof, yeah. Points for participation. Cards like that are neat. Buddy Joe just sent me a message and said, hey, I found a really cool set. I'm like, I got a few from that. I think he picked up a Ted Williams, of course, for a ridiculously great deal. They're little blank backs. It's blue tint. So you need these late 40s sets, and you're trying to find ways to collect people in different ways. Spick and Spans in the 50s. Spahn's first cards were like 47, if you're going Bowman, and Leaf 48, 49 kind of era. So then you also start looking at, fun things like that. So I've actually picked up a few of these stamp type things. So 49 Eureka. And that's kind of in the, high double digits, low triple digits, depending on how nice you want to get it. They can get into triple digits and be a little healthier. Another one I picked up that I don't know that you can call it a rookie per se, because it's more of a time range. It's another postcard, but just got this in. And Joe called me out and said, I think you might cross the line. I think you might officially have to say Hank Aaron's somebody you collect. And I will say that I think I have a pretty fun Hank Aaron collection, and, a few different rookie-ish. This one was issued 54-56, so I'll pretend it's 54 and it's his rookie, but it could also be his third year. I don't know. It's a range. So it's ish, and it was kind of priced. Like, it's not quite a rookie, but it's better than a second year kind of price, essentially. So whatever. It's cool. It's a neat pose, and it's different. It's rare. It's unique. I was almost going to say it's iconic, but it's definitely not iconic because not enough people have even seen it or had it. So maybe that's something else that makes it, do we call it oddball? Do we not? But I always want to just kind of give credit and say, thank you, looking back and seeing some inspiration for things like that. You bust out some Brave stuff. Some of that's newer. Some of it's been in the collection for a little bit, and none of it for 20 years. But, just to see someone else showing their stuff, and you can either say like, hey, I've got that. That's super fun. Or, just add it to the shopping list because that's something you really, really want to add. That's also fun. So, just looking through, there's also some, folks in the community that comment every video and just kind of keep you inspired, keep you influenced, and to, keep doing what you're doing. That's also a very real thing. So always want to say, thank you to those that are commenting, liking, leaving some just positive feedback. Sometimes it's folks that have a channel. Sometimes it's folks that are, strictly watching. I know the term used to be lurker, but that's almost like oddball. That doesn't have a real positive connotation. I don't like that. I was a lurker for a long time. That's how you learn. That's how you're probably the most active in the community, honestly, because you're not spending time doing this. You're spending time watching and commenting and, building some relationships. So a lot of times I feel like that's the easiest transition. If anyone's on the fence, like jump, go ahead, start doing some videos. But real quick, I want to run through a couple others because like I said, I pulled a bunch out. Just thinking about, that same cardboard and cold ones I mentioned, vintage card Wonderland, buddy Josh. So whenever I think of Josh and his collection, he just showed his top 30 gold cards, probably some grails in the mix there if you count more than one grail. I don't know what his one grail would be if you just count grail as one, but definitely a lot of good gold cards you shared. And when I think of his channel, obviously he's more diverse than this, but I always think of things like that, where it's the Venezuelans. And this was a card that he actually let me know was there. He was thinking about it, working on it, and I think what ended up being his deal killer, if he couldn't get it for too crazy of a deal, he was probably going to bail, was the back has just a little bit of paper loss. And for Venezuelans, that's way common. That's all of them. Almost. So one of his criteria generally is I don't want paper loss. And, when you're looking at mantles, everyone's seen that card, but not as a Venezuelan. So when I can find these where they look, like a high 1 or a 1.5, maybe they have some paper loss. Got some 2s, got some 3s, got some different stuff. But cards like that are super cool when you can make them even more both rare and scarce. I don't know that Venezuelans can be called oddball. Maybe. Whatever. All right. Back to that debate. So just wanted to shout out his channel. Wanted to shout out buddy Mark with all his Dodger stuff. And I've been wanting to share some stuff, and I'll probably do another video because I've got some other items that I wanted to share with him. But some of the coolest poses items. So the exhibit Koufax is super neat, and these generally you're going to get either like the 47 to 66 range, or you can get the 62, which ends up having stat backs, and I think they, the stats can be in different colors, and that's a red back. It's a 4. I'm not sure why you need postcards that are 9s. Not that I don't have some, just because it is fun to say, that takes a rare thing and makes it scarce. Maybe, whatever. I like that pose. This is one I picked up. It's also a 47 to 66 exhibit set, but it's the 49 Dodgers team. And by 49, if you look at, who all's there, you should see Campanella, you should see Jackie, and of course you'll see Duke and Hodges, and what a just neat collection. But it's really, as you start to see some diversity on the teams, obviously the Dodgers were leaders on diversity, and that's a blank back one for that one. But stuff like that's cool. And then of course, if you're going to be sharing and having some fun with Dodgers and showing off the stuff Mark might like, you want to show maybe some Jackie stuff. Jackie stuff obviously gets really expensive, and he's been kind of on fire. So one of the items I picked up, sorry, noise. This is the first time I'm taking this out of the packaging. I've only had it for a couple weeks. I'm hoping this doesn't fall apart on screen. Oof, it's delicate. Oof, it smells like 1950. But faucet, little comic magazine type thing. Hey, I don't know. Is oddities a better word? Should we use that? It's the first time I've seen the back of this thing. Now, I got this for a couple of reasons, and this thing is, as they say in A Christmas Story, fragile. But when you open it up, you can just cover me because I'm less important than this thing. The comic of it all, you get Branch Rickey immediately, which is always something I look for. If I can get some Branch Rickey stuff, I'm always pretty happy. But yeah, it's really, really just a neat piece. And it goes through the entire thing. I saw pictures of it, so I kind of had an idea of what was in here. So it's not like I bought blindly, but it's a lot of pages. Like, there's a lot in here. And they actually, what's neat is they talk about him being a great football player. So, really neat piece. Not enormous dollars. Definitely less than any of his cards. So, if you're just looking for something cool and fun, and, when I saw that, Branch Rickey always reminds me of Joe, because he's been gathering one heck of a Branch Rickey collection, but anything Dodgers reminds me of Mark, and I think that's one of the side joys. John, 3D80s kid, had us do a VR, and I think one of the things that's maybe more than I expected of being in the community is just how much you start to see items and you think like, oh, that person would love that. Clemente, you think Theo immediately. Now when I see Brave stuff, I'm going to, immediately tie back. And, if it's Hank and Spahn, I'll be saying that's Matt stuff. If it's Eddie Mathews, which I do have an Eddie Mathews little video coming up soon, you go that direction. And this is getting long, so I'm going to try and hustle here. The other two participants on that live that were always kind of fun to catch up with when possible was Sammy, who is a big Seaver collector, and I think he shared these top supers, 70 and 71, and I think as he shared, super cool that you get like the actual card back with kind of a unique image on the front, and they're big, they're oversized, so that's kind of a fun twist on the norm. Couple things, I said I was going to share a couple things maybe that he didn't have, and I don't know, he probably does have this one, but these bazookas, I know 68 is on the list, and I'm hoping we just find two for half the normal price so we can both have one, because that's on my list too, but it's almost like Sammy has dibs. So that's the 71, that's a neat one. This one I don't know if he has. So 73 Topps pinups. It's a neat item. The back is always going to be kind of janky and jacked up, and they get a 1 for that reason, which is, for me, gosh, these are expensive. These are super rare and scarce, and oddball, and oversized, and all the other labels we want to put on it. So, I don't know, whatever. I just know there's not a lot of them. I know I'm happy to have one that looks really, really nice and is graded a 1, therefore it wasn't as expensive as it could be. The other card he showed that I thought was interesting, when he said, I have a pretty big one on the way in terms of the Seaver collection. I was like, I bet I know what it is. And I commented and I said, did you grab that recently? Yeah. So I'm sure I was watching the exact same card. And I didn't go for it. And the reason is I had recently snagged that one. So, this is a kind of an interesting card, the 69 Topps Super. It's got the rounded corners, so it's the more common one. I want to say there's over 100 of these, so they're not, I guess we could probably still call that rare. According to Mike Petty, he said that the Wilson Franks was considered rare, so I'm going to go ahead and call this rare as well. But if you want to take something that's not as impossible to find and make it a little more scarce, or make it more rare for that matter, grab it in a particular grade. A lot of times I operate on the other end of things where, like that Venezuelan mantle, like if I didn't have that in a 1, I can't afford it. It's off the list. I'll never own it. So my version of rare and scarce on that is it has to be beat up. My version of rare and scarce for this, and this got to be not as cheap as I wished, but you get it in a 9, the population of 9s and higher become much lower. So super thrilled to have that in the mix as well. And then the other thing I wanted to throw at Mr. Sammy is he showed the super amazing, iconic 1968 Topps Tom Seaver. Love it. I've got a 5.5. He also showed, he has a 5.5, which is insane, but I'm only a half a tick behind him. The 68 Venezuelan Seaver. Which is cool. Then you get a variety. This one's way multiples expensive compared to the regular Topps because the population goes from thousands and thousands to probably sub 100. Maybe around 100. I don't know when you add in all the different grading companies. And then I know Sammy's got 1. I know I actually have 3. These are more so how they usually look. So that one's considered fair, and there's like paper loss on the front. How rough is that? So take a look at that thing. Somewhat up close, you start to see there's some paper loss there. The backs are actually decent on these. And then that one's a 2. So also pretty clean. I mean, nothing crazy offensive. So take that. These generally you'll see, maybe it'll say something about being Venezuelan at the bottom. Certain years I love because they're very clear. 64, 62, 67. I love because you can just look at it and be like, yep, Venezuelan. Some of these other years have inconsistencies and they're tougher to kind of properly label, diagnose, and even the grading companies get them wrong. So be cautious if you are getting into that. Make sure it's a reputable dealer, and or make sure you're reaching out to folks like Josh, and some of these Facebook communities are pretty darn good. But I wanted to throw at Sammy the challenge. He mentioned not having it currently. I didn't know if it was on his list or not for sure, but keep it going, dude. Get the whole rainbow. So 68 O-Pee-Chee. Definitely way more scarce. The back is really interesting color, and generally O-Pee-Chees are going to say they're made in Canada, so that makes that a little bit easier. And then the other one, they kind of call it like a banana color. That's really the indicator. So I have 2 Ryan rookies. I've got a Topps and a Milton Bradley. The other ones are sassy. Yeah, big time. But a Milton Bradley is the 4th. I call 68 has like the rainbow. I don't know what a rainbow is for modern stuff. I think there's 2 different colors. I don't even know. I don't do modern stuff at all. With any kind of like intelligence. I buy a couple cool cards for $2, but that's about it. But yeah, you do see, it looks almost identical to Topps. It's just the color is a little varied. So I think it's really, really neat. And I will say the color variation is not nearly, they say like, oh, the color's different. I'm like, is it? Good Lord. You get those in 1s when they're beat up and a little muddied looking. It's a tougher interpretation. When you see them live in person, I guess you can tell just slightly, but it's not as easy as you would think. So that's my pitch to Sammy, is finish out the rainbow. It's really cool to see all 4, just a variance of 1 year and all the different, makes, models, and editions. But thank you for, kind of igniting some Tom Seaver love. Not that I didn't have it, but it is fun to see somebody that's collecting things, and I'm seeing some new mazes that are more interesting because you see it through someone else's lens. And then the last gentleman that was on the live that I wanted to always give proper due and credit to is Mr. Jason, and he mentioned maybe the idea of jumping into player collecting. So would never want to influence, but if you can ever inspire, one of the joys of player collecting is you do get to do a deep dive. Matt was showing off just crazy stuff, and you get to do a lot more crazy stuff when you have a pretty intense focus. So when you don't have, every single 62 Topps Hall of Famer, but you're trying to get into every single, Louis Aparicio card. 62 Topps Louis Aparicio is really cheap. Or Sherm Lawler, if that is your flavor of the day. You're just going to run out of some of the exotics because Sherm Lawler probably doesn't make it into things like this. Whereas, this is a really, really pricey offshoot. These 71 greatest moments. They're really tough because they're all black borders and things, but I only have 2. I'd like to have 30, but they are very, very pricey. They're tough to find. So the only ones I have is Ernie Banks, who I collect, and Louis Aparicio, who I collect. He's kind of in that next tier of folks that I like to collect. They also mentioned Nellie Fox. I would say Nellie Fox is not quite in my top few, but he's up there. I collect him pretty darn hard. I only live about half an hour from his bowling alley. So that's really neat. When he retired, he ran a bowling alley back in kind of the area he grew up in. So we're like half an hour from his bowling alley. So growing up in Chicago area and seeing, White Sox and always, my dad would always talk about the 59 Sox and things. But, you jump into some Nellie Fox stuff because what does stink is you leave Chicago, you kind of hope you're leaving like that, hometown premium, and now all of a sudden he's like the local kid premium. Like, dang it. I expect, if you're in Baltimore, Cal Ripken should be expensive. If you're in Chicago, Nellie Fox should be expensive. But unfortunately, the way this thing pans out, go to Philly, Mike Schmidt should be a big dollar thing. Matt showed a Hank Aaron, which is insane. These things are crazy expensive, especially if they've not been taken apart. This is the, Jeffrey Dahmer set. I mean, it's kind of, that's, sorry, just lost 2 followers, I'm sure. It looks kind of disturbing. First I thought Operation, and then I thought, this looks like some kind of, ID Dateline kind of episode or something. It's crazy. All these hands and arms just laying all over the place. But you get into stuff like that because you're a player collector. So when you're a player collector, instead of saying I need to check that box off, you say, you know what, is there a Nellie Fox in that set? Cool, I collect Nellie Fox. Or maybe you just, White Sox collect. That's cool too. But pre-war, if you want to stick with, White Sox infielders, you can also get more updated. I've got some of his pre-war stuff. I'll do a Luke Appling video at some point because I do really appreciate Luke Appling and how underrated he is historically. But you pick up his autograph stuff for not a lot. So it's neat. 1980 to 02 Perez Steele. He started back in the early 30s. And picking up his autograph is probably something that costs in the 30s. So super reasonable. But this is a really, really long video. I apologize. I did not mean to kind of rant and show quite so long, but it's really just talking about these hot topics, these oddball things. But I really wanted to give some due to everybody, and thank you for shout outs and mentions. It's fun. Marcus Cardicus is one of the folks that will comment every so often on our videos, and I mentioned him and something he had said, and he's like, "That's cool." I heard me. I got shouted out. So he's not producing content at this point, but he's he's part of the community, and so it's kind of fun to see. It's fun to see yourself getting a mention for some reason. That means you stuck in someone's mind for something, and just to feel like you're maybe able to contribute a little something to the conversation, or like I said, not so much influence, but maybe inspire something that someone's doing. So thank you all. As I pulled all these out and had a blast kind of looking through some stuff, it's because of you all. So thank you. Ton of fun. I'm going to tag a ton of channels in this just because it's what we do and how we support each other. So thank you all. I will catch you all on the next much shorter video. Have a good one.